Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. There is so many noises going down, like in between my neighbors doing construction and then playing loud music. There's gonna be a lot of sounds. And in the meantime, while I'm making this video, I'm going to be exfoliating and doing some skin routine, some maintenance. So this video today is about quitting marijuana. I've wanted to make this video for a while, and the reason I didn't make it is because I wanted to make sure that I had at least a couple of weeks in. I wanted to make sure that I had at least 2 weeks in without smoking weed. And you're probably wondering why, why I want to make this video. And I want to make this video not only to hold myself accountable, but to finally stay in this sobriety journey for once and for all. Like, I'm done with marijuana. I've been smoking weed since I was, I want to say 12 years old. My first experience smoking marijuana was hanging out with one of my cousins and mutual friends at a park, and everybody was smoking, and one of my friends passed me a blunt, and I grabbed it, I smoked it, and I felt it wasn't really that great of an experience. I don't even know why I stuck to it, but I'll tell you later on in the video why. So after I had smoked that first time, I remember getting home. I felt like, honestly, my feet were so heavy. I could barely walk. I had to take off my sandals and walk home barefoot. And it was kind of chilly that day. It had to be like somewhere in the winter time in Florida. And I remember seeing everything slow motion, and at some point I felt like I was having a heart attack. And so I showered because I wanted to regulate my heartbeat. And then I went to bed and pretty much, went to sleep. And the next day I was like, wow, this was crazy. And by the way, I'm using the glycolic acid from Ordinary to get my skin all cleaned up. It was one of the most intense experiences I had. And after that, I didn't smoke weed again until, I want to say I was like 14. And I remember when I smoked this blunt, it was actually, I was walking, behind some neighborhood trying to go to like either a friend's house, or I was trying to get to the store, something like that, get myself something. And I think I got lost, and so I asked the guys who just happened to be with somebody I knew. I asked them, hey, how do I get here, this and that? And they were like, oh, you just have to make a left and a right and blah, blah, blah. Hey, here, hit this. And I was like, what's this? And they're like, just hit it. And of course, me being 14 years old, I'm just naively thinking, and I hit it, and my mouth goes numb. And when I told them, hey, my mouth went numb, what is this? They're like, oh, there's just coconut, relax. And I think at that moment, number one, I was just like, I totally minimized how cocaine actually is, or what it was. I was like, oh, this is all it does? Just like numb out your mouth? Okay, So I didn't really have any fears towards cocaine, and so that's a way I can honestly say it became a gateway drug to other drugs. But after that situation, I never smoked again, because it felt like it took me centuries to get to the darn location. I think it was a store. I think it took so long, and I just didn't. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, it was a friend's house. Someone that I used to go to church with. And so after I got there and I felt like it took so long, I remember walking back home and feeling so exhausted. So after that, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to smoke again. that year at church, I met a girl, and she actually ended up giving me a 8 ball of cocaine. It was crazy because, like, when we were talking, I was like, well, what do you think about this church? And she's like, this sucks. Like, I don't even believe in any of this stuff. And, like, everybody's super fake, whatever. Like, luckily, I'm high. And I'm just like, oh, you got weed? Or you got cigarettes? And she's like, I got cigarettes, but I got coke. And I was like, oh, I had that in, like, weed once. So, yeah, no big deal, And she's like, well, here, I'm going to give you some. So she made me do a bump in the parking lot. And after I did it, I was like, oh, well, this isn't too bad. And she ended up giving me her bag. And I was like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah, you can have this. Like, no big deal. I have a bunch. And so I went home that day. And I remember at the time I was dating a guy that was much older than me, which actually happens to be the father of my teenage son. This is before we had children together. He was around 23 or 24, and I was 14. I know, jail babe. Very inappropriate relationship. But anyways, moving forward, I told him about it, and he got so angry, so angry at me, that he became very abusive. Like, he grabbed me, pushed me against a wall, and was like, how could you do this? This isn't what women do. This is like inappropriate. And I was like, well, you used to do it, or you still do it, right? Like, I don't understand. Why can't you just take it for yourself? Like, why are you getting so freaking crazy? And he pretty much was like, I'm done with you because you're taking this. And I was like, listen, you can take it. I don't want it. So after that, it was traumatic to experience him yelling and screaming and slamming me on the wall. It was quite just horrible. I never did it again. Like, I never even thought about touching that stuff. And then I got older, and around the age of, I want to say 17, maybe 16, I started picking up marijuana again. And that's because I started kind of hanging out with the older crowd who was doing music in my neighborhood, and they smoked all the time. And so, I would have like 1 or 2 joints and hang out with them all day and drink a lot. Drinking was like a very big part of my teenagehood. Like, I drank a lot. Like, I was drinking, a whole bottle of OE, a whole bottle of Hennessy, Hypnotic, Alizé, all that stuff at 14 by myself. Like, just tearing down bottles. Like, or I would have like 7 beers in like one sitting. It was like my drugs and my alcohol were pretty much my escape at that age. And I didn't feel like I had any other options because I didn't really have many people to talk to. I was already an only child. My parents barely spoke to me, and they were like this weird religious pairing of people who they just had no emotional intelligence. They could never ever give me anything I needed as far as emotions was concerned. Barely hugs, barely, I'm proud of yous or no type of validation. And their only concern was bring me good grades, don't make me look stupid in church. That was pretty much the rules. So after I got a little bit older and I started doing hard drugs. So I was doing hard drugs, but they only lasted very temporarily. So like when I picked up on cocaine, it was very short. Like, it was, I want to say, a good year or 2 that I was doing it consistently every weekend. I think maybe there was maybe a 3-week, there's like a 3-week time period where I did it like during the week. because I had a bag on me. And then I realized, oh my God, like I really can't keep doing this, because number one, I didn't feel good the next day. Like my head would hurt insanely. And then I wouldn't eat at all, and I was already a very thin person. And I also felt like I was so disconnected from people. Like, at least with marijuana, I could talk to you, we could get into it, we could vibe. But when I would be on coke, I could never even freestyle. I couldn't sing. I couldn't like have a great conversation with somebody. I just felt like super dead inside and super dense, like stone faced, dense. And I just didn't like to be that way. So a little time passed. I was already about, 18, 19. I had been in this relationship with my son's father. And by then and we were living together at some point. I was like 16 living with him. He was about 28. And I did e-pills. I took like 12 e-pills in one sitting. There were times that we did drugs together all day. We drank all day. Bottles and bottles of alcohol. And I never liked alcohol. I just drank it because it was the easiest thing to get. People were so much more open to give you alcohol, and like younger people had more access to alcohol for some reason over like hard drugs. But then when, I'm obviously in a relationship with an adult, he was able to have more access to drugs and actually know more people that can give them that. So, oh man, when I think about all those years, it was such a blur. It was like I just blurred time. I blurred everything. All I really wanted was to escape and feel a hug, like I just wanted a hug and a conversation from my family, but I couldn't get that. And then the relationships I got into were super toxic, and that relationship I was in was super toxic. And in order to escape the feeling of loneliness and pain and feeling discarded and feeling unloved, I used drugs. I definitely used drugs to mask the pain and to numb myself out. And I didn't get this realization until just recently, on my 18th day of being sober for marijuana. And I'm sober from all these other drugs, but marijuana was the one that stuck the most. It stuck around the most. I had this realization when I had texted my biological brother, who I met a few years ago, that I really wanted to connect again, and I wanted to talk, and I wanted to be close, and I wanted to get to know the rest of my family, because my father was a Rolling Stone, and kind of like, he made families everywhere, and I just felt like so disconnected when some family members would reach out to me, like my brother. And it dawned on me like, oh my God, like drugs have made me so recluse, like so introverted, to the point where like I'm already introverted, but it made me so much more introverted to the point where I wasn't willing to call people back or message people back, or marijuana and other drugs were just letting me keep moving forward without addressing the problems. When I think back, I'm just like, wow, and you guys know, I told you that I have a teenager, and even with that, it was difficult to deal with the pain of having gotten out of an abusive relationship, being a teenager, having postpartum, going through all these life changes, and then having this toxic family that just didn't show me any type of love. It was all about controlling my environment and controlling even my child. And it was just so tough on me because I had to continuously numb out. And, obviously that meant going to the car to numb out, going to, the back of the house to numb out, going to the other side of the neighborhood to numb out, going to the garage to numb out. And it just got to the point where I was like, I'm really taking 45 to an hour, time out of my life, time out of being with my son, to do drugs. And you can send this video to my son. My son knows. I talked to him about it, that, and I've been very apologetic. And of course, that doesn't change the time that was wasted, but he totally understands that where I was coming from, because where he is at his age now, that's when I started experiencing parenthood. That's when I started experiencing so much loss, like people dying, like my cousins, I had a couple cousins pass away, one from suicide, another one from she was trying to cross the border and end up drowning. A lot of things were happening, and just experiencing loss in general. I couldn't grieve. When I think back of even students that I went to school with that passed away, I didn't even get to grieve of those things. I was just a kid trying to figure out why everything ends, And I think the realization that, you always have one foot in the door and one foot on earth and one foot in eternity was always very real to me. It was, oh man, I need a moment. When I think about all the times that I got high and how I even treated others, just super cold or unaffectionate or just not engaged. I would let people open up to me and get close to me, but I wouldn't do the same back. And I started realizing as I got older what, other friends would say. They're like, I just feel like I don't even know you, even though I've known you for years, but I don't feel like I know you, the real you. And looking back, I'm just like, I didn't know myself either. But anyway, this is about marijuana and why I quit. I quit because I was tired of blurring time. I was tired of feeling disconnected. And I wrote some things down of what quitting marijuana has done for me. So let me grab this. Man, I'm super emotional right now. So I had so many fears, and the biggest fear was that I wasn't going to be able to achieve my dreams, and I wasn't going to be able to experience the happiness of family. Though I don't have my mom and dad around, but just having the family I created, was I always going to run away from the feeling because it was too much for me to handle. The feeling of being fully committed, the feeling of being fully responsible, the feeling of having people count on me and rely on me, not just with my son, but in relationships, romantic relationships. And, it was tough to realize that I was cheating myself out of these feelings and these emotions, because I just couldn't emotionally regulate myself to handle it and take it in. I have anxiety, but it didn't change when I smoked. It just made it worse. Or it's, subdued it. And then when the high was gone, my anxiety was double, because now it's wow, I was super numb, and I'm so attached to the feeling of feeling numb and detached that when I get back to me, back to a natural state, I'm like, I can't handle this shit. It's super sad. I became more comfortable in my skin. I wanted to do that. I wanted to be more comfortable in my skin. I didn't want to always go out and feel like I needed to smoke weed to be comfortable, just to be more social, to be more fun. And realizing that I'm as fun without it. And I didn't need it. And maybe, you know, as you get older, you hit a wall with that stuff. And then it just stops working, you know. And maybe it's just maturity. And I'm glad that I'm getting there now. I also thought that my real creativity could only come out with marijuana. And I feel like that was a complete lie, not only from... It was conditioning, you know, watching it on TV, watching, you know, people say that made me really believe that that's the case, that without marijuana I wouldn't be creative and I wouldn't be able to come up with my own original stuff. And that I needed this, you know, outside component, this outside thing to come and make me better. When I was already creative. I was already strong in that department. I just needed to be able to cultivate it more instead of numbing it out with marijuana. It was definitely slowing me down. I wasn't able to keep up with what I wanted to keep up with. I would not follow through with the things that I said I was going to follow through. And I constantly disappointed myself and started losing trust in myself. And that was a huge, huge deal for me. And quitting weed just like made me realize, wow, I am consistent. I am on point. I can do this. I can't believe I ever thought I couldn't. Also, I was experiencing CHS. So CHS is pretty much it's what happens when you have too much cannabinoids in your body and you cannot regulate, you cannot expel it from your body, so your body becomes almost like allergic to it. You start vomiting a lot. You start feeling sick. You start feeling super horrible. I can't like on the top of my head tell you the name, the what the acronym is, and that's probably because I'm going through this video just off of emotion, just totally feeling it. But yeah, I was vomiting. I was not feeling good. I couldn't get food down at some certain points. And I would be like, let me just smoke some more, maybe to make me feel better. But then I started realizing that's what it was. And I didn't really even need to go to a doctor to figure that out. But it happened about like I want to say like maybe 5 months ago. I started getting sick, man. I wasn't going outside. I didn't have COVID because I got COVID tested. And I went to the doctor, got checked out. I was fine, you know, but then when I got home and I would hit I would just get super sick. There was a point I was puking every 30 minutes, like literally every 30 minutes. And the only thing that would make me feel better was like putting the water on hot and just laying in the tub and just like putting a warm cloth on my forehead. It's the only thing that was working for me. And every time I thought, I need to go eat something, but I'm not hungry, I would go and hit the blunt, same thing would happen. And then that's when it started hitting me. I was like, oh, this has to be like a condensation of a condensement of all the THC I have in my system, and I'm not able to process it because there's no other reason. And I don't know why I thought about it, but I always felt like I was pretty good intuitively as far as like picking up on what's wrong with me. And I'm not always right, but 80% of the time I'm right on what's wrong with me when I'm sick. I also stopped fearing dying high. And I know this could be very connected to my faith because I grew up in a very religious home. And even though I'm pretty agnostic, I feel like because I believe that parts of the Bible, which was, you don't you want to be received in the kingdom of heaven sober-minded and also childlike, the heart and mind of a child, and as far as your essence, and also sober-minded, so you could get the full experience, so your soul, your mind, body, and soul get that experience fully without any altered states. And that was a huge fear and something I just did not want to experience. I didn't want to, if there is a God, I didn't want to go up there like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I think this happened when, so my partner, my secondary partner, he had checked his bank account and saw that there was a lot of money withdrawn, and I really got upset. And then I got paranoid. I almost was thinking, oh my God, are we being followed? Is like somebody watching us? Is somebody watching our every move? Are we gonna get robbed? And I got so paranoid. I remember going to the bathroom and I felt like my heart was coming out of my fucking body, and I was just terrified, man. I was just fucking terrified. And then I felt this feeling that I wasn't real, that the world wasn't real, that my life wasn't real, that I wasn't real, that I was just like I was a microbe. Felt like nothing. And I couldn't regulate my heartbeat. My face felt cold. It was one of the worst feelings I've ever felt. And that's the day I quit. That's the day I quit smoking, which was 20 days ago. Wow. It's crazy saying that. And you know what? For a while, I was a professional quitter because this is my third time quitting. But the other times when I quit, it was more because I was like, I just want to reset. I want to, clean up my system. I just, you know what I mean? I feel like I'm smoking too much. I want to, reset my system. But this time it's different. This time it's just done. I'm just like over it. Like there's no desire. I still have the weed in the house, and I haven't even once, gone there and opened a drawer to look at it or smell it. Nothing. And when I'm walking around in LA and I smell marijuana, it actually makes me a little nauseous, to be completely honest. I feel more productive. I retain more moisture in my skin, so I love that. Less emotional disconnection. I eat much less. Like I said, I'm more comfortable in my skin. I have better coping skills. I'm saving money. Who doesn't love that? I have cleaner thoughts, less intrusive thoughts about the past and my mistakes and the things that I can't change. That is very relieving, because I felt like, marijuana at some point was just creating a huge net it was like a wall and a net. So a wall with a net. So it was just like, a bunch of bad things would get trapped on that net. But then there was this wall where I couldn't fully break it down and unpack it. And I became better at manifesting. I've just become better at handling problems and not trying to escape them. Pinker lips. I had to write that in there. You guys know I love beauty. My hair also, you get so dehydrated, your hair sometimes starts getting super dry, and it was becoming harder to maintain it. It was harder for it to absorb moisture. That happens to some people, especially as they age, and I'm not no 20-year-old, so I have to just do everything I can to maintain a healthy scalp and healthy skin and just healthy insides in general. My workouts are much better. I'm much more stronger. I'm able to lift heavier, so that's also good. I could go for longer. Overall, I don't miss marijuana at all. I'm putting a little bit of... This is my Nombuzen Korean products. Love Korean products. You guys been sitting here watching me with my dry ass face. Yeah, guys, that's all I, wanted to say and wanted to share. Because I really want to share with people that, at first drugs seem fun. At first drugs seem like they are the escape. They are going to help you. Some vitamin C from the ordinary. And that they're going to help you and that you're going to be able to escape your trauma, or you're going to be able to get, where you need to go with that. Like you're going to be able to, find peace. And it didn't. Ultimately, it didn't bring me peace. It's made me look back at my life like, man, I really wasted a lot of time. Wow, I really, could have done this. I could have went out. I could have spent more time with my family. I could have, but instead I chose to take 45 minutes out of my life to roll a joint and smoke it. And, in part I am disappointed in myself. But when I think about it, I have nothing. I feel like I'm filled with compassion because I look at the people that are on Skid Row here in LA, that are on Fent, that are on hard drugs. And it just makes me look at them in a whole different, I never thought that they were horrible people, but it makes me even way more understanding and sympathetic towards, what they're experiencing. Because a lot of times people do drugs because they are legitimately hurting and they're legitimately just looking for that spiritual and physical hug that they never got from, their loved ones. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just how society will break you down and will make you feel like you're not enough no matter what you do. No matter how nice your car is, how nice your place is, how great your job is, or how many girls you get, or how many guys you get, or how many toys you have. And it just doesn't, when you feel like society doesn't feel like you have a place, it doesn't feel like they have a place for you, when you feel like society doesn't acknowledge you, when you feel like your family or your friends or people, overlook you, you forget to give yourself that hug and you look towards drugs to do the job. And it'll never work. It's super temporary, just like this life. Only drugs can get you out of here, just like any other dangerous thing can get you out of here. And I'm glad I didn't, go to jail and listen, in my life I did a lot of things, and, drugs is just a small layer of, the life I lived and the experience I lived. But, because this video is about that. Just gotta say, it was not worth it. Can't believe I wasted my time. Oh, man. My only regret is not stopping sooner. That's literally my only regret. Well, I hope you guys like this video and don't think I'm a total sap. And yeah, please like, share, comment, subscribe. And I also have a video coming up of an interview I did with Sobriety University. His name is Joel, one of these content creators who I watched and was like, oh, I definitely got to do something with him. And so we got together a few days ago and did some video. So I can't wait to show you, and I hope that this was informative. And if you have any questions and you want me to make any videos on any other drugs that I tried and how it affected my life, please comment. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye.